Bang! What is up, everyone? We are back again. UFC Singapore, Max Holloway versus the Korean Zombie is the card that goes down in about 5 hours. And you know, I couldn't leave you dry this week. I had to do a full card breakdown. I've been doing one every single week for a while, so I didn't want to break the streak. I don't know what we are. We're probably like 4 or 5 weeks in a row now or something like that. I know most people are sleeping because most people in the world, their timing right now is it's probably like midnight, 1 a.m. And I'd actually like to know where you are in the world. Put in the chat, what time is it where you are in the world? At the moment for me, it's coming up to 5 p.m., 4:30. So the fights start at 9 p.m. for me, whereas for a lot of people, the fights start at 2 a.m. So I know a lot of people are sleeping now so they can wake up in about 4 or 5 hours when the fights start. And so they have some energy when they watch. So I don't expect we're going to get too many people in today, but I have got a couple special guests in store for you. They should be here soon. And I will say, I'm not feeling 100% like I can be bothered to go live. Thing is because I was up real late last night and I'm just not feeling it. But like I said, I really do want to continue these breakdowns. And so I'm coming on here anyway. So sorry if I'm not super hyped up, but don't worry, man. The information will still be out there. So we got my man government. We got the actual government coming on saying it's 9:30 where he is, 12:33 a.m. for Shane. For Lathan, it's 11:33. Gas is in the Maldives. Shout out to Gas. I'm going to get myself over there next year probably. Steve saying 12:30 a.m. starts at 5 a.m. Jesus, man. Are you doing the all-nighter, Steve? You better get to sleep, bro. Robert saying 12:30 a.m. in Virginia. What's up? Let's get this money. We appreciate it. And like I said, boys, I'm feeling a little bit tired, not super energetic today. So I thought, you know what? Why don't we bring in another guy, the most chill guy to counteract me a little bit, the most chill guy on MMA Twitter. We got the Jewish bettor, the Jew himself. We got the collab going on, Jukrative. What's going on, my man?
Lucrative. We about to be doing it tonight, baby. That's another one for you guys. I think I gotta be the best co-host like in the game right now. You gotta bring me on your show. We'll get the people hyped, baby, because we already know what it is. We're just trying to make some money.
That's it, man. Good card to make money, honestly. Like I got a lot of bets in store, and I'm looking forward to get into them. So I want to just shout out everyone else in the chat first. Gas, anyone home? Giga versus Alex. We're about to get to that. Jewish Bear already in the chat before he's live on your screen right now. He's everywhere. Jewish Bear's everywhere.
Yo, you care if I say something real quick, man, about this? Like,
Please go.
And this isn't about anybody specific because I like all the shows that I go on. But the one thing that I did notice about you, you're a very sharp individual. But sometimes I feel like a MMA show, especially when I have multiple guests on it, could become a little bit of a, like a dick swinging contest. Like, oh, no, this, that, the third. When it should just be trying to give the best info out. And the last thing I'll say before I let you go ahead is this card for us in America is, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Like these books make money off of people making impulse decisions. And if you're not properly rested or if you're up 5 a.m. chasing bets, like just be aware, today is the day that the books are going to try and get you off making impulse decisions.
Yeah, that's a fact. One of the most important things about sports betting is the mental side of it. And that's something that nobody really speaks about on Twitter. And, that's a combination of reasons for that. I know a lot of people on Twitter, they don't gamble too much, maybe just on the fights once a week. But the mental side of gambling is by far the most important. It's not even close. In my opinion, anybody can learn how to be sharp, a.k.a. how to cap a fight, how to find value. If you just study the sport you want to bet on, eventually you're going to be able to pick out value spots, right? It's going to take some time, but you can do it. The thing that people almost never fix is the mental side. So that's definitely correct. And, that's something that I try and teach. But at the end of the day, you have to learn it yourself, right? You have to go through the struggles yourself. You have to lose a bankroll a couple of times. You have to make mistakes to fully internalize it. So although me and Jewish Bettor might tell you, you might just have to make the mistakes for yourself, man. But without further ado, we'll get straight into the first fight of the night, because I know people want to speak about that. So Jarno Errens versus Seungwoo Choi. I'll kick this one off a little bit. This is a good fight. It's a banger of a fight. Anytime Seungwoo Choi is in a fight, it's a banger. I don't remember the last time Choi was in a fight that I didn't enjoy. You know, even going back to all the way to the Gavin Tucker fight, that was still a decent fight, and Gavin Tucker ended up finishing him. Even his Movsar Evloev fight, and Evloev, I'm not going to say he makes fights boring, but he just consistently grapples, doesn't really fret too much with finishing. Even that fight was as good as a Movsar fight will be, you know. But, I mean, Seungwoo Choi is always in bangers. He's got multiple knockdowns in his last few fights, but he's also been knocked down multiple times in his last few fights. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, and most of the time in MMA, in the UFC, you don't really see fighters get that fourth shot. But they already know. The reason they're giving him the fourth shot is because literally what I said prior, you know. He's a very exciting fighter, and I'm not surprised to see him fight for a fourth time here. If he does lose here, though, he's probably going to be cut. And that just brings an extra layer of volatility into the matchup. You know, I'm not sure too many people are thinking of this aspect to it, but I've definitely kept it in because, you know, fighters that are fighting, let's say, their last fight on their contract or their last fight before they potentially get cut, which is probably what Choi is facing, you don't know how they're going to perform. You don't know how they're going to react. Maybe their nerves just get to them too much and they freeze up. Maybe because they're so nervous, they don't freeze up. They go crazy. They fight even harder. Maybe they treat it like a Dana White's Contender Series fight. They know that they're not going to be in the UFC if they don't win. So they put it all on the line. But they might fight tentative because they don't want to lose. So that definitely adds a little bit of another layer of volatility, in my opinion. But with that being said, how I see the fight breaking down is I think this is a striking fight. You know, I know Choi may shoot some takedowns here. Like, it is possible. I've seen him shoot multiple takedowns in the last few fights. I just don't really think he's going to have massive success doing so. In my opinion, Choi is an outright striker. And I see this fight, even though there might be some grappling mixed in, I just see the fight being, for the most part, a 15-minute striking fight if it goes to the cards. And in that type of fight, I think it's very close, man. I honestly think the technique of Jarno Errens may be a little bit better in some regards. And maybe not the technique of certain strikes. Like, I know Choi has a very, very good, sharp, straight hand. But in terms of the technicality and maybe the IQ in the striking, I definitely lean Errens. I think he's a good striker. But overall, I see this as a close fight. The thing that swayed me to the Errens side quite heavily is he was a decent-sized underdog. I think the line's come in a little bit now, but, you know, he was at 180 at one point. And also the fact that Choi's just been getting dropped all over the gaff in his last few fights. And I do think that if his durability isn't dropping down, then his defensive technique is, you know, something's going wrong. I don't think it's just a coincidence that he's been dropped multiple times by many opponents in a row. And like I said, 15-minute striking fight, I think Errens is a good striker. I think he's going to have a chance to crack that chin. And even if it might be close on the feet at times, I do trust Errens' durability above Choi. So I'm liking the underdog a little bit here. I understand it's a close fight. You know, Choi can still finish anybody. I think he hits very hard. He was very close to finishing Alex Caceres in that fight, who fights later on in the card. But overall, I'm going to lean to the Jarno Errens side here. What about you, Ju?
Yeah, that was some really opportunistic jiu-jitsu from Caceres in that fight. Like, he was definitely losing at that spot. Caceres should have probably lost that fight. But that being said, you are completely correct about his IQ at his striking defense, I think, more than his chin. I think he's not, because he takes shots, like, in his fights, and he's able to withstand them. It's just he gets hit way too much. It was like in that Trezano fight where he's just throwing left hooks and they're just exchanging left and right in the pocket. I don't think it's smart to do that with a guy like Aaron. So I do actually see Choi, since he's coming off a knockout loss, trying to mix in some type of grappling, like you said. I don't know if it's going to be effective, but I think the winner of this fight is whoever is able to land the clean shot first to the chin. I think Choi can crack. I think if he's able to connect on Errens, that could change the dynamic of this fight. I believe in the durability possibly of Errens, maybe just not the durability, but just the defensive abilities of Errens a little bit more, as you alluded to as well. So I do agree with you on this fight. Seungwoo Choi's back's against the wall here, so this is a must-win spot for him. For me, it's a complete pass. I guess if it's just going to be a complete pass. I don't even want to give you guys a pick on a fight. You know, a lot of shows are like, you have to give out a pick. I'm just going to pass, bro. Like, I hope that's cool with you. I'm just going to pass.
Yeah, of course, man. Like, I do feel pressured to give a pick as well because the people always telling me. Sometimes if I don't give a full pick, because I might go around the house with my explanation, I say there's value on that guy, but I'm not picking that guy. I'm not super clear. People will literally DM me after the show. Hey, like, who do you pick for this fight? Because I think they do I think a lot of people do a full card parlay of like every single person I pick outright, even if I'm betting the other side. You know, we got some degenerates out there to do that shit. So I do feel pressured to give a pick every now and then. But man, at the end of the day, this is gambling. It doesn't really
Yeah,
matter.
people want opinions.
Yeah. Can you hear that?
Can I hear who? You?
Yeah, there was some advert that just played. You didn't hear that?
Oh no, that was
Okay.
not me.
I don't know. I think that was Tapology. You know, you get adverts on Tapology sometimes. But
All the time.
I didn't think they make sounds, but I don't know, man.
Noises, right? Yeah, it could have been.
The next fight is Liang versus JJ Aldridge. Funny fight, bro. And you know what? I'm in the mood for some comedy, so I'm just gonna let you break this one down while I sip my tea and laugh to myself.
Right, my man. Hell yeah, dude. I think JJ Aldrich has the biggest forehead in all of women's MMA. How you gonna know?
That's the breakdown there.
Gotta take the forehead in this spot. I think Na Liang has one round of cardio. After that, JJ Aldrich is gonna piece her up.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big old forehead.
Yeah, it's true, man. Yeah. Forehead's probably got this one in the bag. She's like minus 550. She's minus 550, and someone said 5 head. You know what I'm saying? So all signs are pointing towards she getting. All signs are pointing towards she gets the W here. The thing about Na Liang is she seems dangerous, but she hasn't proven anything at the UFC level. And even back on the regional scene, where she has got her wins, they're over average fighters, and she's actually lost to some decent fighters even before the UFC. So what that she lost to Maria Agapova, Juliana Velasquez, and Lily Shakarova, who I think she came into the UFC and got tapped out by Lauren Murphy at one point. But basically, all her losses outside the UFC are against decent UFC level fighters, Maria Agapova, Juliana Velasquez, and then all her wins are over 0-0 guys, 4-2 guys. And although she has some moments in those fights she loses, like against Ariane Canelossi, she had a good moment where she had her in a deep submission. She just hasn't proven anything against anybody good. I mean, I'm going on her record now, Ju, and like honestly, her best win is like over a 6-1 girl. Her second best win is 10-4. Her third best win is 4-2. I mean, it's absolutely laughable. She hasn't proven anything at the UFC level. She's been finished by strikes in both of her UFC fights. Really, the only way you play this one is if you think it finishes inside the distance or not. All of Na Liang's fights finish inside the distance. Against that one time she went to a decision with Lilia Shakarova. So it's like, is there going to be a world in which she finds it to decision here? Because
I think so. But go ahead. I do. I think JJ Aldrich could piece her up on the feet. The ref doesn't stop it. Na Liang just grapples enough to pull guard, survives. JJ Aldrich stays on top in the guard, and everybody loses their under 2.5. Fight doesn't go the distance. But this is a 115 women's MMA fight, guys. Just remember, at the end of the day, even though Na Liang hasn't gotten the decision in any single one of her fights, I smell something here.
I honestly can see it. You know, somebody in my syndicate who I work with is on the over 2.5 rounds here at like plus 160. I couldn't do it myself just because of the way JJ Aldridge, not JJ Aldridge, but Na Liang fights. But it's so weird because we got one girl who just finishes or gets finished in every fight. And then we got another girl who never finishes. So something's got to give here. Who's going to give, Na Liang or JJ Aldridge? It's really tough for me to predict, man. Honestly, gun to my head, I do think JJ Aldridge gets the finish. I just feel like it's going to be so easy for her to get the finish because Na Liang is going to be completely gassed. She's going to have nothing left.
Here's the thing, though. I just don't see JJ Aldrich as a finisher on the mat. She could punch her out, I think, on the feet. I just think if Na Liang's able to just retain guard, just survive, You know what I'm saying? On the ground, it could get greasy, but I do agree with you. Like, she should be able to get her out of there. I think her striking's a lot better, and like you said, Na Liang just comes out like a bat out of hell. Like, she's got one round. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, like I say, I'm not having a bet. So although I'm predicting the finish, I'm not putting my money on it because I just can't trust Aldridge. But I am predicting her to get the finish. I mean, even if Na Liang has no gas, even if Aldridge doesn't have great ground and pound or dominance from top control, to which it's not bad. Like I've seen her stay safe in Gillian Robertson's guard. I think she just defended the takedowns all fight. I'm not even sure it went to guard, but I've seen her stay safe in Demopolis's guard. You know, she hurt her and followed her to the mat. She seems like she knows what she's doing on the ground. She's not dangerous down there, but it could just be the fact that Na Liang just gives up. She might literally have no gas to even get full guard. She might just have to sit in side control, some pitter-patter shots, and just because she's not moving her head out the way, the referee jumps in. 15 minutes is a long time for Na Liang, you know. So I do feel like the finish could come a little bit later. So I think if you want to get a little bit sneaky, JJ Aldridge in round 3 could be something, because it could be it goes over 2.5, but she still gets the finish, something like that. Like if it finishes, I feel like it's late round 2. And that's already over the 1.5 rounds, which is what Na Liang never really goes over, right? So yeah, I am predicting it, but that's enough for that fight, man. It's a bit of a shit show. Minus 550. Not much we can do with it. Good luck to you if you're putting your money on it. But me and you are not going to be doing that one. So the next fight, Kinoshita versus Billy Goff. Great fight, man. Take this one away from me. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, I really like Kinoshita. I think he's the better overall mixed martial artist fighter. And on top of that, I did watch an interview 6 months ago. Billy Goff coming off a double knee surgery from a grappling tournament. Like, I don't try to look too much into interviews, but like, tell me that's not a huge red flag. Like 3 meniscus tears 6 months ago, and he was saying in the interview, like, I'm having trouble wrestling in practice. Like, he's like, I think I'm gonna go to practice tomorrow in the interview, but I just had surgery yesterday. Like, I don't know, man. This guy does seem like a little bit of a character, but I'm gonna treat this one like it's a contender series fight. Like, if the Fugit fight didn't happen, right? It did happen, but I think Fugit's actually a lot better than people give him credit for. I mean, he was not, folding to a guy like Mike Mallet. He's able to beat guys like Solomon Renfro, who just had a decent performance at the PFL. I just think at the end of the day, Kinoshita had a rough debut in that spot. He's still young. Billy Goff's still young as well, but I'm just watching Billy Goff's fights, and he's put in spots every single time. And where he's just hurt, he's on the edge of defeat, and he's able to come back. I just don't know how long he's going to be able to sustain that. And there people I'm talking to that are on the Goff side generally tend to think that he's going to be able to use his wrestling to get Kinoshita to the ground in the spot. I don't think Kinoshita is just a fish on the takedown defense. His jiu-jitsu probably isn't as good as Goff's, but I don't think he's a fish on the takedown defense. And if you really honestly ask me, I think Goff's wrestling is kind of mids. If he's not catching kicks here or getting lucky trips, I don't think he's really going to shoot double legs and be able to take Kinoshita down. Kinoshita, I think all the way here personally. For me, I actually put 500 to win about 400 on him in this spot. So,
nice.
Yeah, that's my breakdown on it, man. I don't have a super in-depth breakdown. I think he's going to head kick Billy Goff, similar to how Smitrowski did it. I'm not a fan of Goff's striking defense, and I know that's kind of a bland breakdown, but I think he leans a little bit too much into shots. He's kind of a little bit too much go sometimes. He wants to keep that pace, try and get in your face, but he leaves spots for him to get KO'd, and I just think the higher up that ladder he goes, we're going to see somebody take advantage of that. And I think Kinoshita could do it here in that spot.
Yeah, that's exactly what Fubu's saying, you know. It's not a hard fight to break down. Kinoshita is a lot cleaner in space. You know, he's definitely a cleaner striker. He probably hits harder. But obviously, if he doesn't get the finish, Goff he's probably going to do what he does to everyone and finish them, right? So it's a very volatile fight. I am more on the Goff side, though. I didn't bet Kinoshita at like minus 400 in his last fight. You know, I know a few people bet him. I wasn't massive on him, and now I'm just jumping ship because of one fight. just from what I've seen, the tenaciousness, the dog in you, like that really gets you far. But I do agree that I've seen some of his vulnerabilities. It's not like this guy's got an iron chin and you just can't get him out of there, but he still takes shots. Someone like Billy Q. It's not like that. So I do think he can get knocked out in this spot, but I don't know. I just lean more on the Goff side. I don't have a too much to speak about it. It's for me, it's easy. It's like if Kinoshita has a massive chance of knocking him out in round 1. If he doesn't do that, I do suspect Goff to take over and drown Kinoshita. I don't think the fight goes to decision. Under 2.5 rounds, like minus 250. I don't think that's too bad if you want to put in a parlay or something. I know a lot of people like doing that. For me, I'm going to lean with the Billy Goff side. I do think he could get this win. But we've got my other man coming in right now. Maybe he will throw something else into the mix. We got sparring with reality, Luke, with all of who's that chick you like? Liana Jojua. Yeah, it's got all of. Sorry, I got the name wrong, bro. Don't tap me out, bro. With the ADCC hat on, you got all of Jojua's mixed martial arts gloves behind you. How you doing, bro? Hope you're doing well.
Good, man. Yeah, I saw your tweet, and I figured, I made the executive decision about an hour ago that I'm gonna stay up for the card. I'm gonna do it. So I'm like, well, we're about 4 hours out. I might as well get the feet wet and talk with the boys at least.
All right, so tell us which one of us is wrong, my man. Like, I hope you've been following along. We need a third opinion. You got to tell us, like, am I right or is Lucrative right? Are you going with the Asian or are you going with Billy Goff?
So I'm like somewhere in the middle, honestly, in the sense that I think it's a pretty volatile fight. I'm leaning more with James's side, actually, though. I did pick Billy Goff to win. It's just, I think you brought up a lot of good points too, JB, that, I think the guy's incredibly open and live to get put down. He's been hurt in like 3 or 4 different fights. I think Kinoshita is a sniper. So I do think a knockout from Kinoshita is very, very live in this spot, but I do think the longer this fight goes, the more it favors Billy Goff, but I don't really feel passionate either way. Honestly, so I don't even have a bet on the fight. Like, gun to my head, I would take like a shot at like Kinoshita round 1 and then like fish into a live entry on Goff is probably how I would play it. But I'm probably going to sit it out for at least right now.
What I will say as well is, like, I know a lot of people will probably have that live bet angle. And I don't disagree with it because, like all of his fights, he's probably going to have to come through some fire to win. But what I will say is, don't wait till the round one ends to live bet it, because I could definitely see a situation where he gets hurt in round 1. Maybe he isn't looking great, but then he rallies back and finishes in round 1. I don't necessarily think he has to wait to round 2 to get it. So if you are doing a live bet angle, just be on the phone the whole time. Be on the computer the whole time. Don't wait to round 1. To live bet round 2. But yeah, like we said, like we all said, we're all on slightly different sides. I'm on the Goff side, Ju's on the Kinoshita side, and Luke's on the pass side, right? So I mean, that should tell you all you need to know about this fight. It's definitely volatile. And with that being said, we'll move on to the next one. This fight, a little bit less volatile, you should say. I mean, he's one of the biggest favorites on the card. It's Rolando Bedoya versus Keenon Song. I'll break this one down initially because I don't have too much to say about it. Hopefully, you guys can speak a little bit more in depth. I will say that I was completely wrong about Rolando Bedoya in his first fight. And I thought that Chaos was going to knock him out in round 1. I thought Bedoya's defense and just his overall aggression was going to get him into trouble against one of the hardest hitters in the division and fastest hitters in the division. I know people can say Chaos is not a great fighter, and he's not. He doesn't have much. All he really has is very, very fast hands, a crazy chin, and crazy power. And that won't get you too far in MMA, as we've seen his levels kind of, stop now. He hasn't, he had that early burst Chaos where he's winning a lot of fights, and now he's kind of, having close fights with Semelsberger, Bedoya, those type of fighters. But I think that, he proved me wrong in that fight. Bedoya took punches from Chaos. I was correct in that Chaos was going to land, but I was very incorrect in that he was going to get knocked out. I had seen Bedoya cracked badly on the regional scene and almost knocked out, and I just kind of assumed that would happen in this fight, taking a step up against Chaos Williams. So he definitely showed that he's got a very good chin, and I don't know whether he just had a great chin for that fight or he's going to have a great chin going forward. I tend to think that I just underestimated his chin and he probably just got cracked on the regional scene. I only seen him hurt once on the regional scene, to be honest. So that was probably just a perfect shot at the perfect time. And in this fight, I just feel like you got someone who's shown that he's got a good chin for the most part against somebody who he doesn't really throw at all. You know, he's got very low volume. Even if Bedoya does have a bad chin, Keenan Song's probably going to have about 5 chances to hit it. After that, he's probably going to get outworked, out volumed. And as we know, later in the fight, Song kind of has bad cardio. He lets the fight get away from him. I haven't really seen Song come from behind and salvage defeats and look really good in round 3. I've seen Song have good round 1s. And then if he doesn't get a finish or doesn't dictate the fight, he just doesn't really do much. And he's obviously getting older as well. He's a veteran in the game. It seems to me like Bedoya is just going to put the pace on this guy and probably finish him. I will say that Song's quite tough. I know he got knocked out in his last 2. Griffin was a first-round knockout. Griffin hits hard in the first round. We know that from his entire career, really. I know he doesn't have a lot of finishes, but he's got a lot of knockdowns and just wobbles and stuff like that. And then obviously Ian Gary, we know that Ian Gary can be super patient. I bet Ian Gary via decision at like plus 300 in that Keenan Song fight. And honestly, boys, I was counting my money. It was like 20 seconds left. I was like, this can't happen to me now. He can't get the finish after really just outpointing him for like 15 minutes after that big bonk. But, you know, so be it. It happened. I kind of got it back last time because I was going to play Ian Gary inside the distance. If I would have played Ian Gary against Neil Magny, if I played Ian Gary inside the distance against Neil Magny after losing on Ian Gary decision against Song, I would have hung myself, man. That would have just been the worst time. Yeah, exactly. The noose around the neck. Luckily, I kind of just passed on that. But yeah, I'm getting off topic. Basically, I think Bedoya is going to put the pace on him, probably finish him. I think a late round finish is probably even more live than an early round finish, which oftentimes that's not the case. But I'm picking Bedoya here. I said I wasn't going to do a long breakdown, and I still did. That's just what I do. Luke, let me know what you think. Are you picking the plus 250 underdog, or is it a straightforward fight?
Honestly, you kind of hit all of my points, so I don't really have anything else to say. Similar to you, I kind of thought Chaos was going to dust him. He didn't. So I know what a lot of people are saying is that this is like massive market overcorrection. And from some perspective, it could be, but it's like really just looking at the style dynamic within the fight. Bedoya just kind of presents a lot of problems to a guy like Song: forward pressure, volume, grit, toughness, cardio, leg kicks, youth. You know, I kind of think Song is probably early knockout or bust. So I took some small stabs at Bedoya 2-3 props.
Yeah. Jewish, what are you saying, bro? Making the free Pete?
Yeah. Well, look, the thing is, I think the fight that needs to be talked about here is not the Ian Gary fight, because we know Ian Gary's good. I think Song looked, okay in that fight versus Gary. He looked decent in some spots, right? But it was the fight before versus Max Griffin. Like, I think that's a bad look. Like, if he was just coming off getting finished by Max Griffin, I'd be like, if that was the last fight that was in my mind, I'd be like, whoa, this guy's going to lose badly. I'm not saying Max Griffin's the worst, but he's not necessarily a huge finisher by any means. I think Bedoya here is probably the side, but I think the books got this lined correctly. I think they have a lot of the fights on this card lined correctly, actually. And it's going to be, our job to just find the value.
Well, I have like 6 money line bets, so I hope that's wrong for my bets. But we'll see, I guess. Something that said, he beat Chaos in that fight. Record should be 15-1. This comment reminded me of, there's been many times in my betting career on UFC where I've seen a shiny new fighter come in 10-0, 15-0, 15-1. And I've kind of overlooked the record and I've gone, yeah, he's got a good record, but it's against bums. But there is something to be said against fighters with very good records. There is. We know that you can lose 5 fights and still become champion. It's not like boxing. But there's been many times where, like for David Onama, for example, the guy, in my opinion, didn't look great on the regional scene, but he had won like every amateur fight and every pro fight, right? And he's gone on to prove that he's a very, very good fighter inside the UFC. And I think it could be the same with Bedoya. Like when he was coming in, I was like, he hasn't really fought that many people. I don't think he's that good. but the guy's got 15 wins and only 1 loss. That is a good record. And that's something that I'm trying to get better at. Judging fighters' tape on the regional scene, which is one of the hardest things to do in the sport. Just because they beat guys on the regional scene doesn't mean they're going to translate to the UFC. But I think, it's quite funny because when I first started betting on UFC, I was kind of overrating these regional fighters. I think we all go through that, right? You overrate the 20-0 Russian Ashkabov guys, right? But then I think I went completely the other side, which happens a lot as well. And I started underrating them. Like, he's 30-0, but it means absolutely nothing because he's fought nobody. This is the UFC. But he's 30-0 for a reason. And everybody that goes on to become real good fighters in the UFC, most of the time, they've got like 10-0 records because they're good fighters. So there's just that balance that you need to get. And I do think that, Bedoya could actually be a good fighter. I mean, he's got tons of pace and he's got tons of things that you would like to see in a fighter, just in terms of his pace, his aggression, his finishing ability, and also his potential durability. So that's just a point I wanted to make. Fuba's saying, same thing. So hard to judge talent when they jump big up in competition. And that's why we can always pass, right? We don't have to bet every fight. We can always pass and just, I know Luke says this word, it's like a show me spot, a show me spot, You don't really know about them yet, but they're going to show you. And you don't have to pay for them to show you. You can just kick back. But I do think Bedoya showed us in that chaos fight, and I do think he gets the win this weekend. The next
just
fight,
to add to that point real quick too, James, if you don't mind, like I think because I was kind of like with you as well. And I mean, I still agree with you that I think judging regional level talent is just so hard. But I think one of the things that's helped me, at least recently, is like if my assessment that they've fought a low level of competition, it's like, okay, well, how are they beating them? Are they going to decisions? Are they going to split decisions? Are they getting hurt? Or are they going out there and handling, the perceived bums, accordingly? But that brings, a whole nother different level of questions. If they're finishing everybody early, do they have cardio? How do they handle adversity? So, it's a back and forth thing, but that's just something that's helped me at least a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's definitely true. I remember that from Askar Askarov's run in the UFC. He was 10-0 coming into the UFC, and he had 10 finishes. And then he had 6 fights in the UFC, and every single one went to decision. He didn't finish anybody because the step up in the UFC was massive. But he was running through everyone on the regional scene, and it proved that, he did end up hanging in the UFC at a very high level. So that kind of goes back to what you're saying, It doesn't always translate to finishes, but if they're dusting through people, they can definitely live up to the hype. So yeah, the next fight is Chidi Njokuani versus Michelle Alekseich. Jewish better. I'll let you go off on this one. This is a great fight, man. One of my most anticipated fights on the card, and I actually have a bet, so I'm excited to talk about it. But Jewish, what have you got for this one?
I originally put in a bet on Michelle Alekseich pre-film, but I wound up cashing out on it because I'm just confident. This is another fight that I actually do. When I say the bookies have it lined correctly, I don't necessarily mean that there's not value on one side or the other. I just mean it from their perspective, and their objective at the end of the day is to get that 50-50 even money on both sides to where they're making a profit no matter what happens, right? That's how they're able to make money time and time again, like every single time, right? So I think this is a closer fight than I originally thought on paper. The reason I thought Michal had the advantage was because I just think Chidi Njokuani, watching his last few fights, has looked like he's slowed down a little bit on the decline. I think, going into round 2 versus Rodriguez, he tried so hard to get the finish there and wasn't able to get the job done that, he eventually gets finished himself. And I could see Michal actually doing that. So I'm going to completely just pass on this fight. My original read on it was going with Michal Alekseich, the younger fighter. I think he was going to be able to have the better cardio, but it could be overreacting to Chidi's last 2 fights. The thing in that Dariya fight is he was mixing in the wrestling, right? And that was forcing, I think, Chidi to take a second guess on the takedowns and not be able to let go with his striking. And that's something I originally didn't realize on film, right? I thought Michal Alekseich was going to be able to just outstrike him, mix in the wrestling. But then I really went back and watched. And, Michal isn't really a wrestler, man. He's getting submitted by Jimmy Crute, beat by Ovince St. Preux. And I can't get my money down on this in this spot. So, I don't know, man. What side are you on, bro? I want to hear more of your opinion on this fight because at the end of the day, this is just going to be a complete pass for me. I think this is going to be a striking affair. I don't think, even if Mikhail tries to mix in the wrestling, I think Chidi's going to keep it standing, and then it's going to be a striking battle.
Yeah, so my opinion is it actually changed, and not fully changed, but I kind of just went a little bit more bullish on the other side. So it's been really busy this week. We've had PFL on a Thursday, which is really random. We had Dana White's Contender Series on a Tuesday. We've got Road to UFC, which is on a Sunday, and we've also got the UFC, which is on a Friday. So this has been the most weird week ever. I know it's Saturday morning for a lot of you, but a very weird week. And so I usually like tape one event and then I move on to the next event. But this week I did different. I taped some of PFL, then some of UFC, then some of Contender Series, and I was all over the place. And so I was kind of rushing some tape. So when I was taping Chidi and Michelle, my first read, I did a couple of fights each, as I usually do. And my first read was that Michelle's too open down the middle. He's too aggressive. Somebody with the Muay Thai striking of Chidi and Jokujuani is going to be able to land knees up the middle. And if Michelle does close range, I think Chidi's going to get him in the clinch and butcher him. That was my initial read. Then I went back. Then I kind of did the PFL tape, the PFL, whatever that event went. And then I went back and I watched some more fights. And I actually changed sides. I actually came out with not only picking Michelle, but a bet on Michelle. And I'll tell you the reason why. From what I've seen time and time again, Chidi's a bit of a flaker. If he's not having his own way in a fight, after the, he'll stay tough for like 5 to 7 minutes. He doesn't instantly flake like some of these fighters, Liang, but he'll stay tough for like 5 minutes, but then I see him drop downhill. His cardio doesn't look good in certain fights when he doesn't get the outside range fight he likes, or when he's not dominating, his cardio drops down. And I think against someone like Michelle Alekseich, who's not going to give him any room to breathe, I think that we could see that flakiness come out of him again. Whereas I don't think Michelle's going to flake. I've never seen him flake before. He's never been finished before, which is crazy because the way he fights, you would think he would get finished, right? But he's so aggressive, and dropping down to middleweight, I think is a better weight class for him. Definitely his body suits middleweight a lot better. I just think the styles make fights. And I do understand that Michelle's going to be running straight down the site of Chidi's knee and his elbows and his front kick. So I do think he could come on, he could step through into something big. But I think if he doesn't, I think he's probably going to break Chidi. I definitely favor Michelle late, which is crazy because about 3-4 years ago, I had Michelle as 100% out-and-out gasser. So, it's quite crazy that I'm saying now he's going to break somebody late. But I do definitely give him the advantage if the fight gets to the third round. And I also think he could finish in the first round. So it's not like I'm saying that he has to come through the early first round and then he'll take over. I think he could just bum rush Chidi and knock him out in round one. Because like I said, I feel like Chidi flakes at times and Michelle hits very hard and he's a much better boxer than Chidi and Jokujuani. He's a much better boxer. And we've seen him blow through people in the first round before. So I think he's got round one upside, just like Chidi does. I think he's going to be the one pushing the pressure and the one looking better in the eyes of the judges with the volume, output, pace, pressure, ring control. And I think I favor him going late, and he has potential grappling upside. So for all of those reasons, even though he might get knocked out, I've got a bet on Michelle here. Luke, what's your breakdown of this fight? Luke, you're on mute at the moment, brother.
My bad. Yeah, so I'm taking kind of a different unpopular approach here, but I bet the over 1.5 in this spot for like 3 primary reasons. One, like actually looking at the distance metrics for these guys, like McCall defends at distance at like 62+% and Chidi at like 66%, which are pretty good numbers. I know McCall's gotten a little shaky here and there at times, but I mean, generally he blocks actually a ton of punches on his guard. And Chidi obviously plays in more of a methodical sniper range-based game. Obviously, both of these guys are like potent finishers, but traditionally they've actually both been relatively durable at distance. Both guys are primarily getting finished on the mat with subs or ground and pound. Whereas if there is grappling in this fight, I think it would probably come later. But honestly, I don't even know if we really see any grappling in this fight. So I think that's interesting from a finish perspective. And then the last point is, if you look at the last 2 guys that McCall has fought that were more, mid-range outside-based kickboxers in like Modestas Bukauskas and Dustin Jacoby. Both of those fights went a full 15 minutes. And obviously there's some different considerations, with potential cardio on the Jokujuani side, which honestly is ultimately why I didn't, really put my big boy brass balls in my hand and just play the GTD. But I do think this fight actually goes over 7.5 minutes more often than not. I think there is going to be a little bit of more of a feeling out process for McCall within this fight. I think the pace could actually slow a little bit, and then it might pick up a little bit later down the stretch. Obviously, like I said, both guys have been potent finishers, but I guess it's kind of my tinfoil hat take. I do think this fight is going to extend more often than it doesn't.
I've got a massive tinfoil take on it over later in the card. I'm excited to speak about that one. But yeah, I actually agree with you. What line did you get on the over 1.5?
Like plus 110, I think.
It's good plus money, right? So the bookies are saying they're not favoring it. Yeah, I don't mind that. Honestly, I'm on the Michelle side, and I know Michelle has some round 1 KOs, but I feel like if you're on the Chidi side, you probably think he's going to blast Michelle out early, whereas if you're on the Michelle side, you think it's going to go a bit later. So because I'm on the Michelle side, I actually do, or Mick Hall, whatever his name is, I do like the over 1.5. So hopefully Michelle wins in round 3, and then we both cash our bets. That'll be good enough for me. So the next fight, Toshiomi Kazama versus Garrett Armfield. I'll break this one down quickly. I think Armfield's going to win the fight. I think he's the much better striker. I think Kazama doesn't have great wrestling, and I don't necessarily think he's got the wrestling to take Armfield down consistently to get his jiu-jitsu game going. I don't know if he's going to get any. I mean, he's got some good sweeps from bottom and some, he throws up some submissions. I don't really. Armfield has definitely struggled with submissions in his career in the grappling. I definitely think that's a path for him. But from what I've seen, I don't think Kazama's going to be able to get on top consistently. And from the bottom, shit happens, but it's a bit lower percentage, right? I don't really think Kazama's going to sub him from bottom. And I just think Armfield's the better striker here. Just to me, he's the better all-round MMA fighter, well put together. So I'm going with Garrett Armfield here. Luke, we'll swing it straight back to you. What's your opinion on this fight?
Yeah, I have a smaller play on Armfield, not like super passionate on it, but kind of for all the reasons you mentioned. I just think he's the better guy at this point. Really, my concern is that he has gotten tired in a couple of fights, but I think there is some context within like all of his losses. Like, Ronnie Lawrence out wrestling him, but it's like Ronnie Lawrence cardio wrestles like pretty much everybody. And that fight was like in 2019, 4 years ago. Armfield was just a kid, and the loss to Matteo Vogel, who's honestly one of the better Canadian prospects right now, who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's actually fighting on the Contender Series on Tuesday upcoming. And Garrett Armfield was honestly whipping his ass early in that fight. And then he made one tiny mistake from the body lock. Vogel got on top and submitted him. But I mean, overall, Armfield was winning that fight. And honestly, I thought Armfield made a decent account of himself against Onama early in that fight. I mean, Onama had like 5 inches of height, 4 inches of reach on him. And, he had a lot of success. I think Onama only outlanded him like 27-20 at distance, came in on like less than a week's notice, up a weight class. To your point, though, my thing with Kazama is I think he's just lost completely as a striker. I think he's fragile. I think Armfield hits pretty hard, pushes a pretty good pace. I think Kazama's jiu-jitsu is pretty decent, but I don't think he's a very good wrestler. And I think the first level takedown defense for Garrett Armfield is pretty good. I think I see why people are on Kazama. Like, it makes sense. Armfield's lost his only 3 fights of his career on the ground. He's fighting a grappler who's going to try to grapple him. It's more just the wrestling thing for me with Kazama. I don't think he's a very good wrestler, and I think Armfield's just much more proven against much better branded competition. So
yeah,
give me Garrett.
We got almost the same breakdown. Jewish better? Are me and Luke going to lose money or what?
No, I feel like a lot of people are on Armfield, if I'm not mistaken. But I think he's the side though, man. Like I think he's gonna be able to get on top, and if he tries to pull guard or something, like Armfield could I feel like Armfield could take him down, avoid submissions, pass his guard, and get on top. I know this guy's a jiu-jitsu specialist, but like you said, James, it's a little bit of like lower percentage techniques, and if he's depending on that, and the other guy on the other side is a -152 favorite, I just feel like he's the overall better MMA fighter, like you said. I think this is a good spot on this card. I want to bet Armfield minus 150. I haven't gotten down to it yet, but I think if the card's going good for me, I'm going to take a stab at it. Either way, I think I'm going to take a stab at it. I'm just seeing if I can get a bit of a better line. But he's sitting at, I believe, minus 152 right now on my book. I wouldn't mind that price tag, man, because like these guys who are just jiu-jitsu dependent, I don't think Kazama's cardio is good either, honestly. I think he's kind of a round 1 or 2 fighter, and then after that, he's going to fall off versus Armfield. So give me Armfield in a spot. I think he's going to be the winner here.
Yeah, all right. And look, we'll go straight on to the next fight, and I'll stick with you, bro. Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Lucas Brzeski. Heavyweight fights, a fight that I'm really, really not interested in. So if you could just do the dirty work and do the breakdown for me.
Yeah, dude, I'm gonna take a small shot on Lucas Brzeski. I think the one thing I'm worried about him with is his cardio. But if you look at the other side, I don't think Cortez Acosta has the best cardio himself either. And if you did the film, you would see that the guy's getting taken down constantly by. Don't be yawning on me, my dude. It's only what time is it over there,
brother? I told you I've been up all night, brother. But I'm still here for the people, so you know.
Let's go, baby. Nah, I really think I think Brzeski's a live underdog here. I actually think he could finish him in round 1. Brzeski could crack low key, and if he comes in, in a little bit better shape, people are going to be shitting their britches when Waldo Cortez doesn't know how to defend a leg kick, and the cat's out of the bag too. Like people know this is the game plan, so I think he should be able to, use those leg kicks. I've seen him implement them in his past fights, so it's not like he doesn't have that weapon in his arsenal, right? Come over the top, and I think all Waldo he has a nice jab. Don't get me wrong, it's pretty, but he's a boxer in an MMA ring at the end of the day, and I'm willing to bet against that at this price tag. Call me stupid. I could look like an idiot when Brzeski gets cut after this fight, but I think there's value on his line here at plus 185. Give me Brzeski to win round 1, round 2, and Waldo Cortez Acosta is going to have a greasy round 3 with him. I think this fight, actually, I could see a finish on the Brzeski side, though, and if he gets tired. So I wouldn't be guaranteeing that this fight does go over. It's still a heavyweight fight at the end of the day. I do see like a lot of people on the over side here. I think that's too obvious, the answer. Got to remember, at the end of the day, these are heavyweights, so anything's possible.
No, man, respect to you, because I have no interest at minus 2xx on Waldo Cortez Acosta at all. I feel like Brzeski is the side, probably just gun to head type thing, but I can't get there myself. In terms of the over, I was looking at the over to bet, honestly. Just earlier in the week, I was looking at bet. The more I looked into it, the more I think about it. I actually passed more because I thought Waldo might knock him out. It's weird because Waldo, he keeps on going to decision. But when I watch him, I'm like, damn, like the guy throws, like I don't know if he's going to keep going to decision. He throws quite heavy and quite fast, and he honestly has decent offensive tools. I just feel like defensively he's not great, and obviously the leg kicks got chewed up by De Lima in that fight. That's always going to be an issue for him. But yeah, man, for me, I don't have much to say other than that. I think Brzeski's probably the side, but I'm picking Cortez to win. I think he probably just wins another decision. Luke, what about you?
Yeah, I don't have much to say here. No action for me. I think if people jumped in on Brzeski at that like plus 230, plus 240, plus 250, honestly, I would have played that myself. Yeah, but it's same. I think it's just one of those spots where I think the line's kind of just passed by. I still think it's maybe a tad bit high, but I do think like Cortez Acosta, like 65, 66%. I think that's probably closer to accurate. I just think he's the bit better of the athlete. I think he's quicker. I think he's faster, but I understand the angle that this fight could play out competitively over the course of 15 minutes should it get there. So yeah, I mean, I don't hate stabs at the dog, but I'm kind of with James in more of the finishing equity. I would more so see on the Acosta side. That's part of the reason why I think he is the price. So I slightly disagree there, but
I don't think
best of luck, bro.
Yeah, I don't think Brzeski's bad. I just think he gasses. You know what I'm saying? And if you mix in the wrestling, Waldo's not going to mix in the wrestling though. I think this is if anybody mixes in the wrestling here, it'll be Brzeski. So I think he could keep this fight at range. Waldo's a little bit hesitant sometimes. He'll let the fight pass him in certain spots, and if he's not pushing the pace here, maybe Brzeski doesn't gas as bad as we think he does. That's just my read on the fight, but I do see why you would think Waldo would finish him, especially the later the fight goes. If Brzeski does gas, like Waldo could definitely finish him.
Yeah, like Carl Williams hurt him really bad, who's a base wrestler. I don't think that's the greatest look.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, brother.
Yep. So next fight, Luke, I'll let you go through with this one. Parker Porter is fighting the dude's brother who just knocked him out last time in his last fight, which is very rare in MMA. I don't know if maybe Nate Diaz and Nick Diaz fought the same guy at one point. I guess I would assume maybe they did. But other than that, I don't know if anyone's fought any brothers before. But how do you think this fight's going to go? Is it going to be is Tafa Boys going to go 2-0 on Porter, or is it going to be 1-1?
Yeah, I kind of think Porter's going to get put down again, but it's not a passionate take at all. I do think, despite that, I think I'd still be more inclined to take a shot at Porter just based on the fact that it's plus money. I think this is honestly more of like a coin flip type of fight to me. Obviously, Tafa is kind of the archetype that's given Porter problems in the past, big, fast, strong, athletic type of dude. Porter doesn't have the best chin, 38 years old now. On the flip side of the coin, I think if Porter gets on top of Tafa, he might just wreck him, to be honest with you. Obviously, Usman didn't have like an easy time getting Tafa down early, at least within that fight, but it was more so of what I saw on bottom for Tafa that just looked like, quite frankly, like day one white belt type of stuff. Like, I mean, his guard was just open to be passed, and Usman just decided to sit in half guard, kind of like when DeLima fought Maurice Green. If you guys remember that fight, it's like the exact same scenario where it's like he could have really finished him whenever he wanted to, but he just like really had no interest in doing it. And I do think with Parker, knowing that he's at a pretty distinct power disadvantage, that if he does get into top position within this fight, I don't think he's going to coast. I think he is going to try to pass and he's going to try to finish. And I think he's going to potentially have the opportunity to do that. But I do think he might struggle, especially early, to potentially get the fight down. But I took a little bit of the under 1.5 here at plus money. To me, it seems there's just a lot of binary types of dynamics. So coupled with that, Tafa's round one prop is like plus 150. So it's like, you're giving me like early Porter smash upside, which to me is very, very realistic in this fight. Still at plus money. I think it's since flipped to either pick or favorite money, but I think the under 1.5 is a decent spot. A lot of fights in this card I don't really want to choose. I have a decent amount of totals. So
yeah, even from a market perspective, if Tafa's plus 150 in round one, then you're getting all of Porter. And you're getting 2.5 minutes in round two, which I think is very live to finish at any point in this fight, with on the Tafa side, even more specifically, because I feel like if Tafa gets a finish, it could just come out of anywhere. I honestly could see Tafa getting a finish in round 3 after being taken down in round 1 and 2 if he doesn't get finished. I really do, because we see Tafa hurt Muhammad Usman in round 3 last time out. So I don't think he's just going to be this complete. And that was a grinding affair. I mean, Usman did not stop grinding him up against the cage and stuff. It wasn't like it was super low pace and he just caught him in round 3. So I think he carries his power late. And I'm definitely on the tougher side here. I don't think Porter has the wrestling ability of Muhammad Usman at all. I don't think he has the strength from Muhammad Usman or the technique of Muhammad Usman. I'm not saying Muhammad Usman is great, but neither is Parker Porter. And in the wrestling, I feel like one guy trains for that all the time and Parker Porter just doesn't. He just goes in there and swings. And I mean, I don't think Baldo has good takedown defense, and Porter struggled to get him down a lot. And he would just look desperate in that fight. At one point, he was on both knees trying to fireman carrying him at heavyweight. It's just kind of an embarrassing look. He did get the fight down late round 2. I believe it was with a trip takedown or something. But I just don't think he can implement the same game plan as Muhammad Usman. I also think he's going to gas out badly if he tries to take him down like he did in the Baldo fight. And I mean, I see Tafa still being kind of light on his feet in round 2 and round 3 after some grappling affairs, even as the kickboxer in the fight. And I just feel like the level difference on the feet is quite a lot. I know we haven't seen it too much in Tafa's MMA fights, but I do think at some point he's going to catch him. And even if he doesn't, I just think he's going to do more damage. And I think Porter's going to look a little bit lost in some of these striking transitions. Porter does well when he gets into his rhythm of just like punching like 8 times and running into the clinch and kind of just drowning you. So, you know, that is a possibility. I don't think Junior Tafa's like massively high level and he's super proven in the MMA cage, but I see a speed advantage. I see a technique advantage on the feet. He's way younger. I mean, how old is Porter? I'm going to check this now.
I think he's 38.
I think 37. 38. Yeah, he's 38. You're right. I think you're right.
Yeah. 38 years old, and Junior Tafa is 26. We already know what happens when there's a 12-year age advantage for.
I will say this, though. That's usually at the lower weight classes. We've seen heavyweights go into a little bit older age, so I don't necessarily think that's, you know, a death sentence for Parker Porter being 38 years old. He didn't look terrible in his last fight. I mean,
I don't think he's as bad as the lower weight class, but I would still
bad.
I would still give an advantage for the 12-year younger fighter, 100%. You know, for the most part.
Here's my thing.
Well, one point, and I'm going to fling it to you. And you can
go ahead, brother.
One thing that I've noticed is like the 10-year age difference is very real, but only after like 22, 23. If they're like 20 and they're fighting a 30-year-old, that's man versus child. 30-year-old, I haven't actually seen the raw data, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, 25 to 35, the 25 is going to win a lot more often. 20 to 30, I don't necessarily think the 20 is just going to run through the 30 often. So I'm just saying this from my years of experience and off the top of my head. I may be wrong. I probably have to crunch the data sometime. But here we've got a 25-year-old, 26. Yeah. He's a man. He's basically a man, right? Against a 38-year-old. So I favor him for that regard. I think Tafa could even be a bigger favorite. So, yeah.
Did you bet on this fight?
I bet on Junior Tafa.
Okay, but what do you think the line should be?
I thought Junior Tafa should be closer to 200 because I just don't really. I don't think Porter's going to have much success in the wrestling, and if he doesn't, I think Tafa's a big favorite. So I think it should be maybe like 180, 190 or something.
I think you're making the right bet, but here's the thing. I think everybody expects it to be a round 1 knockout for Junior Tafa, and if I had to say, he's probably the most like person I've seen bet on this week out of all people. I'm not saying that it's not a sharp bet, but I could see, like, and you said this earlier, and it's actually kind of funny because that's how I see kind of the fight going. The thing is, he did come in better shape in his last fight. I know, yeah, he crushed the can. That's what somebody said in the comments, right? The thing I think about Junior Tafa's last fight, Muhammad Usman has zero striking defense whatsoever. Like, at least Porter moves a little bit. He doesn't have his head just right out there for the taking, in my opinion. Usman a little bit stiff with the striking. And the thing with Porter is he just kind of has to grind him up against the cage at certain points to survive. And I think Junior Tafa could make an inexperienced decision of blowing his load. Now, I'm not necessarily depending on that, right? But that's the worry I would have with Tafa. Like, I just don't understand, why isn't he minus 200? Everybody, I feel like the way people feel, the general consensus is he should be minus 200. The money's coming in on him, and I see the money coming in on him, but the line just doesn't seem to be moving, and that's what worries me in my heart about this fight. So that's the thing, and I just think if he does gas Porter's there live to just take advantage of it. But that's I just don't. I think you're making the right bet, brother. That's the only too much weed. You're right, man. You're right. Nah, you're right, bro. You're right, bro. You're right.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We get to find out in a few hours, man. So, look, I'm not calling this a super lock. At the end of the day, these are like low-level heavyweights, man. And we already know people hate low-level women's MMA. You should try low-level heavyweights, bro. So, you know, we'll see.
I think it's worse.
we'll see what happens with that one. But yeah, I also think he can win a decision. I will say that. I don't, like I said, I think he could get a third round knockout after being beat round 1 and 2. I really do. But anyway, this is the main event, like for real, for real. By far, this is the most exciting fight on the card. By far, I'm most excited for this fight on the card. And if you don't share my thoughts, I might have to become a hipster and call you a casual. This is Erin Blanchfield versus Taila Santos. This is like future women's MMA champion fighting in a 3-round fight without a belt, which is just completely weird. I don't know how they're doing that, but these two girls are elite, man. I really, really like this fight. I'll break this fight down initially. So I was having a tough time getting a read on it when I first looked at the fights. But as I've done more tape, I lean Erin Blanchfield a decent amount. Taila Santos is a really good fighter. I think this is probably one of Erin Blanchfield's toughest matchups. In my syndicate, 2 of the other guys are on Taila Santos. I'm the only one on Erin Blanchfield. And both of them have told... And I rarely go against them because we speak about fights like this as a trio, and then we come up with a decision there, and I respect them a lot. They're good sports bettors, so oftentimes I don't go against them. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to make my bets, and I'm going to trust my reads. And what they both said to me was like, look, I know you like Erin, but this is one of the only fighters in the division that's going to be bigger and stronger than her in the grappling. And so I understand why people are going to be on Taila, because, I mean, at the end of the day, Erin's going to need to get the takedowns to win this fight. For the most part, by the way, I'll get to the striking because I'm not sure that's a blowout of the water either. But I feel like Erin hasn't showed her best at all. I feel like she keeps improving fight to fight massively. I don't think there's been a fight that I've watched where she hasn't improved from the last one or shown something new. Even in the JJ Aldridge fight, coming off the beatdown of Alpar, yeah, maybe she didn't look better, improved, but in my opinion, she did show something which we hadn't seen before, which was pulling a submission victory out of her arsehole, right? She was getting beat, and then she pulled it out in the second round completely random. And I honestly think that, yeah, you can say that's just meme, or you can, if someone's got the extensive background and skill set of Erin, I think you lean more that it wasn't a meme, it's just that she's a phenomenal fighter and she finds a way to win. That will to win is something that is baked into a lot of the greatest fighters on the planet. John Jones, 5th round when he's 2-2. Do you know what? Dominic Reyes, like these type of fights. I honestly do think that she showed something in that fight, even though she didn't look great. People are going to look at that as a disadvantage. I think Aldridge is actually a good fighter at defending takedowns, and I don't think that was a disadvantage. And then I just feel like she's getting better every fight, man. I think her striking looked a lot better in the Andrade fight. I also think her chin looked very good on the Andrade fight because she caught a couple licks on the button. And I bet her in that fight. And I didn't expect her to win the striking. You know, maybe you can say it was 50-50, whatever. I mean, I didn't expect her to. She shocked me, right? When she was like teeing off on her, smacking her head kicks, and I was like, I didn't really expect this, even though I bet on her. So I feel like every fight out, she improves. She shows improvements. And I think we could easily see a form of her tonight that she's never showed before. And I do think that counts for something big. I really do. It was one of the reasons why I bet on Sean O'Malley against Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling, because I just believed that he hadn't shown his best and he was going to improve and improve. And I really do think that's the same with Erin Blanchfield. So stylistically, I think the intangible there is massive, right? But stylistically, I think she can get takedowns. I don't really see Taila Santos defending every single takedown. You know, Erin Blanchfield will shoot 8 takedowns in a matter of 1 minute, but it will count as one because she's just going from takedown to takedown. She'll try and get you with a knee tap. It doesn't show on UFC stats, but she tried it. And then as soon as you defend that, she's going to a double leg, but she's not really committing. Then she's coming back. She flows really well from position to position, not only with the wrestling, but also on the mat. So as soon as she gets a takedown, she's instantly passing your guard, hopping over, taking your back. She's thinking 4 steps ahead, which I think is very, very high level. I'm not sure Taila Santos has ever dealt with that. I mean, when have we seen Taila Santos on the mat, really? Against Valentina Shevchenko, where she couldn't get back up? You know, I don't really think that Taila Santos has shown this amazing defense once she is taken down. And I just trust in Erin Blanchfield to get the fight to the ground. If she doesn't, and it stays a striking fight, it's going to be a good fight. I mean, I think Taila Santos hits a lot harder. I think she's got the leg kicks. I think she's a more traditional striker. But I think Erin's got that dog in her. I think she might have better durability. I'm not sure. Maybe. I think she's going to push the pace. I think she's going to be out voluming Taila Santos. I think optically she's going to look better for the judges. I just think she has a lot of advantages in this fight. I completely understand Taila Santos is one of the best fighters, who in the women's MMA division. But that's my breakdown, man. I think Erin Blanchfield stylistically has got advantages, but although it's close, and the intangibles massively benefit Erin. Also, Taila Santos has took like 18 months off with no fights. And Erin Blanchfield been fighting. She's in the mindset. She's consistently going, which that's just another thing that you add into your capping. And, also, this is another like 0.5% that all adds up to your implied probability. Taila Santos just came off a very adrenaline dumping loss to Valentina Shevchenko. She thought she had the title, was very close, and then she lost. When these fighters go for the title, they lose. Sometimes they don't come back the same, man, because just mentally they're not fully there. They was geared up for that fight. They almost thought they won it. Dominic Reyes, John Jones, and they just don't look as good. I'm not taking this with like a massive, I'm taking this with a grain of salt, but it does just add a little bit more to my Erin Blanchfield side. So that's my breakdown. I'm really interested to see what you guys think of it. Luke, let me know what you think about the fight, bro.
I have like a very slight lean to Blanchfield, but it's definitely not a passionate opinion at all. Just because I feel like I am one of the people, despite picking Blanchfield, who is giving Santos still a lot of credit within this fight. I think a lot of people are kind of still disrespecting her and like what her overall abilities. I'm not saying you, I've just based on how some people have kind of talked about, honestly, even just her skill set. Like, and I guess I don't really get it, quite frankly. I think Taila Santos is a really, really good fighter. And I think there's a lot of attributes about her game to honestly give Blanchfield a ton of issues, primarily kind of what your boys who are betting the Santos side, mainly in the size, strength, and physicality. I think Santos is definitely the most physical girl that Blanchfield has fought to date. I think she's also one of the best strikers, also that Blanchfield has fought to date, who's pretty long, who's pretty big. I know Blanchfield's striking looked good against Andrade, or I should say a lot better than most people probably anticipated. But we also have to remember that Andrade is a short, little, tiny girl who has no striking defense. So it's like she's pretty hittable at the same time too, where you're getting kind of a more calculated, methodical, mid to outside range game from Santos, who hits pretty hard. So I think Erin's going to be walking into shots here. I guess my overall take is I think Erin's going to probably struggle early within this fight. But to a lot of the points that you made, James, kind of how I've always described her, and I mean this in like a really respectful way, Erin's just like a pest. Like she doesn't really go away, whether that's like striking or grappling. Like she's, to your point, like she's gritty. She has that will to win. And even, if things are not going her way, she's still going to keep powering through, throwing strikes, attempting takedowns, trying to chain different things. And that's ultimately why I came away with picking Blanchfield, because I do think that consistent past nature of Blanchfield is eventually going to get to Santos. And I think Blanchfield is going to win rounds 2 and 3, maybe even a late third round stoppage, potentially. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities. But with all that being said, I do think she's going to struggle early. And I do think there is a scenario of this fight where Taila Santos's physicality just ultimately shuts Erin Blanchfield down completely. And she wins. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if that was the case. We know that physicality goes a long way in WMA. And that's not to say Erin is not physical herself. She's obviously proven that she is in many different capacities. I'm just saying contextually in relation to Taila Santos, I think it's going to be more difficult. What I will say is if this was a 5-round fight, sign me the fuck up. Sign me up on Blanchfield. I think the 3-round dynamic makes Santos a shitload more alive, in my opinion. But my pick is Blanchfield.
Yeah, that's a really good breakdown, bro. And I do agree with you, like late third round finish, and I do think she's going to come on really strong late. I do think she might struggle a little bit early, which is fine, man. I think she's going to find her footing, and from everything I've seen from her entire career, she makes adjustments mid-fight, and they usually work out, to a very high degree where she's getting finishes. And something else I wanted to mention, I don't know if I mentioned it. I think that if Tyler takes her down, I think Erin's going to scramble and get back up to her feet. I really do. But I don't think Tyler's going to be able to lay in her guard like she's done to everybody on her early UFC run. Gillian Robinson, Molly McCann. I don't think she's going to be able to do that with Erin. But I think if Erin takes her down, I think it could be pure domination. I honestly think she could just slice through her. So that's a massive, massive distinction in the fight that ultimately is making me pick Erin with quite a big degree. Jewish. What are you saying, brother?
Itching to talk. Oh, no, I'm joking. I like actually a position on this fight. I really do. But it's not going to be a money line. And you guys brought up a ton of great points. The thing is, I'm going to be going with the under in this fight, guys. The under 2.5. Could you give me a line so I don't misspeak on this one?
So a couple of my guys locked it in at plus 275 earlier in the week. I know for a fact it's not there anymore. I would have got on. I was lacking on tape, and I always go on my own read first. It's plus 200 at the moment on Bet Online for under 2.5 rounds.
I think that's a great bet, guys. I think you guys out there should take that. I think Blanchfield in the standing is pretty hittable. I think if she gets this, she could also crack herself, Blanchfield. Let's not forget that. Like, she was stunning Jessica Andrade with some of those shots. I think she was a little shocked how hard Blanchfield was hitting. But realistically, like my man James said, I think the best path in this fight for the under to be hitting is going to be that Blanchfield sub inside of rounds, 1, 2, or 3. I think once she gets this fight to the ground, the thing is, I don't, necessarily believe in her wrestling that much. She just has to get the fight to the ground one time, though, I think, to really go ahead and dominate Tyler Santos in the spot. Just look at the fight versus, where she took Homegirls back. I believe it was her last fight. Jessica, not Andrade. She finished. Oh, yeah, it was Andrade. She just wraps the neck right up away, throws in the hooks, and absolutely just flattens her out and finishes her. Sliced right through her guard, like my man James said. Silver Fox, black belt. If you guys know who the Silver Fox is, that guy's a legend in the jiu-jitsu game. Erin Blanchfield, cold-blooded. I've been a fan for a long time. I've bet on her in every single one of her fights. This girl was 16, winning EBI jiu-jitsu tournaments. That's the Eddie Bravo Invitational, and she was smoking grown adults at the time. Like, she's just one of those child prodigies who's now coming into her own. But like my man Sparring with Reality said, this is her toughest test to date. So I don't underestimate Santos' ability to crack her on the feet. But I just think at the end of the day, Blanchfield's going to be able to overcome that and eventually get her own moments in this fight on the mat where she's going to be able to submit Santos. And like you guys were saying, also a few red flags on the Santos side with the inactivity, etc. So I'll be taking the under 2.5 in this spot.
That's a good bet. I was going to do it as well, but I don't want to overexpose too much. I've already got Erin money line. It's entirely possible she wins 2 and 3 and wins a decision, and then I lose money because I laid juice on one and pay.
I think that's sharp.
Yeah, so I'm just going to leave it. I've got a read. It's fine. I'm going to leave it. I did kind of want to play Erin. I've played Erin round 3 sub at 22-1 because...
Dude, I think inside the distance is solid, bro. I really think she should win this fight inside the distance as well.
Yeah. If she does, it's going to be a massive, massive show-out spot for her. So, yeah, I'm excited to see it. Easily the best fight on the card. And often you don't say that with a women's fight, right? But it definitely is. So the next fight is Rinya Nakamura, Fernie Garcia. I don't have much to say about this, guys. The only thing I want to say about this fight is that Rinya Nakamura is getting rated as a UFC level round 1 finisher, a brutal round 1 finisher. There's not many of those about, There's not many of UFC level round 1 finishers. And I know this guy looks amazing and he's minus 1,000, but I would not be surprised if this fight goes into round 2, round 3, or even hits the scorecards where Rinya's kind of just dominating with the wrestling, like he did do in that one fight he went to decision. So I do think, I don't know whether it's going to be tonight. I haven't bet it. I kind of pussied out, but I was thinking of the over 1.5 or the over 2.5. But I pussied out in the end. But I think at some point in time, Rinya's going to go to decision when the GTD is like plus 400. And it might be tonight. I don't know whether I'm going to miss out on it, but that's my breakdown. I think Rinya's going to win the fight handedly. I don't think there's much chance for Garcia to win it. Probably an early knockout. But I'm just not guaranteeing this guy's a early finisher. But I didn't play it. So, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. You know, Fernie Garcia is there to be hit. Every single one of Fernie Garcia's fights, I see him, he gets cracked. So you have to be careful with that. And I think Rinya seems to be levels above him on the mat from just credential standpoint. So obviously the ground and pound and submission is always live. So it's definitely risky, but that's my breakdown anyway. Jewish, I'll throw it back straight to you, brother. What are you thinking? We got a minus 1,000 here. Any hot takes or is he going to run?
Yeah, you'll never catch me betting on a guy named Fernie. Stop it. That's my breakdown, brother.
Say no more. Luke, what are we saying, bro?
Dude, I'm in the exact same boat as you. I was looking at that over 1.5, and I kept my skirt on, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I do think it's an interesting angle just because I do think Fernie is a tough guy. It definitely seems like a spot he's being, probably obviously brought in to lose here, but he's definitely not a guy that goes out there and quits. And, we've kind of seen like spots like this in Bellator quite a bit too, where there's like a big mismatch where like a guy's a pretty big favorite. And so like everybody's like smashing the under, but and despite the other guy who's the big underdog being like less, quote unquote scaled and probably gets handily beat, he's just a tough motherfucker and he's not going to quit and he's not going to go away. I think Fernie Garcia might be a guy that's going to fit that mold here. And like the last point is that, he got out of some pretty tricky spots with Brady Heastand, who is a pretty decent wrestler himself and is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. Like if Fernie just had like no like jiu-jitsu capabilities on the mat or anything, I mean, Heastand probably would have subbed him in that spot. So I don't know. I think the automatic conclusion for everybody is that Nakamura is just going to smoke him in 2 seconds. I'm kind of leaning to this fight extending personally.
So you're not going to take the plunge though?
I still might. I don't. It's just one of those ones. I don't know. I think it's like I don't even know what the price is. Like what plus 140 on the over 1.5. I'm not sure.
But I don't think it's that good. Can you check it?
I mean,
I'll have a look as well.
Circa's actually holding plus 150 right now.
Jesus, man, I might have to play that.
That got better because it wasn't.
People are banging the under then.
Yeah, it went from 140 to 50, 130 to 55 on certain spots. So it is low. It's a little bit all over the board depending on where you look. I'm seeing best price 150.
It's one of those ones where as soon as he goes over, though, it's going to be like the next fight, the over 1.5 is going to be like minus 170, and you're going to completely miss out on it. So I just want to be careful. I'm not getting dragged in for fear of missing out of the line. And I am just playing it truly based on me thinking there's value on it. There is value, man. I mean, 140, like I might, I don't know, man. I might have to bet that. We'll see. Maybe me and Luke will be on that by the end of the day. Jewish Better, you had a short breakdown for this one. Do you have any inclination whether it goes over?
I think Fernie is good enough to survive. I think Rinny is a good wrestler. I think his jiu-jitsu is coming along, but at the end of the day, I think this is like another spot like we saw the other day. I think it was in PFL, and my man just mentioned this, but like Paragon Day, right? He was supposed to finish this guy, and he should have. And I thought that originally that was probably the right play, right? And then the more and more I thought about it, is everybody thinks it's going to be an easy spot to finish, and the guy's just good enough, tough enough to survive it out. So yeah, I could see this fight going over 1.5 undoubtedly, and wasn't thinking about it before until you guys said anything. I'll be 100% honest with you. So that generally tends to be a good sign. I think I'll take a look into it. I'm gonna have to watch some film. We still got a few hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might jump on it. We'll see. So I'm gonna plug my charger in my laptop now. But Luke, can you just kick us off for the next fight, which is Giga Jakatse versus Alex Caceres, and I'll be back in a minute.
For sure. Yeah, this is one I honestly, of all the card or all the fights on the card, I honestly have zero betting interest in this fight. I know there's quite a few people on the Caceres side, and I understand the talking points with it. But honestly, my breakdown's kind of simple in the sense that I just think that Jakatse is one of the best strikers that Caceres has fought in his entire career, maybe outside of like, a youthful Yair Rodriguez in like 2015. Just from a technicality standpoint, I think Giga's pretty solid. I think Giga's also one of the bigger hitters that Caceres has fought as well. Even if you remember back to Caceres' fight with Choi, I mean, Choi nearly killed him in that fight too. And if Choi doesn't, illegally knee him in that fight and has a bit more process, he probably finishes Caceres, quite frankly. So I know he's definitely a guy that's largely known to be pretty durable throughout his career, but Giga can crack both to the head and the body too. And even if this does go a full 15-minute switch, I am projecting it to, and that's kind of what the general market is thinking as well. Like, even if it's a relatively competitive striking match, I just think the bigger shots, the more impactful shots are going to be coming from Giga, to where I think Caceres is I think he's kind of one of those like trapped by the number type of spots this week. Where, like I said, I understand the arguments people are making. Honestly, if Caceres was like a more proactive offensive wrestler, I would probably get it more. But I think we're talking, about a 13-year sample size, and the guy lands like 0.6 takedowns per 15. He's just not someone who's proactive. He's good transitionally with his jiu-jitsu game, but he's just not a guy you can expect to go out there and volume wrestle. I think somebody brought up the stat, like he's only landed 2 or more takedowns once in like 10 years or something like that. Like it's pretty crazy. So like I said, if you told me he was going to go out there and shoot, 6, 7, 8 takedowns, my opinion might change a little bit, but that's just not his game. And, Giga's a guy who also tends to struggle with, more consistent forward pressure in a lot of spots, also with volume wrestling. Those are just 2 characteristics that Alex Caceres doesn't have. He wants to outside volume strike or transitionally back take. So I think this is a decent spot for Giga. If, like I said, he can avoid some kind of weird memey stuff. I think the price is pretty accurate, personally.
JWB, what are you saying, brother?
Yeah, no. I agree with everything my man said here. I actually think Giga's live for the finish, though, in this spot. Caceres is pretty generally tough. The only way I see Caceres really winning this fight is by, like, what you said, like how he beat Sungwoo Choi, that back take. Giga gets tired, he jumps on some type of jiu-jitsu, not necessarily just a back take, but his wrestling isn't the best, as you said. Like, he's more of a jiu-jitsu guy at the end of the day, and that's how you'd have to take advantage of Giga in the grappling. And I don't see that. I see that as a low percentage path to victory, in my opinion. Giga's going to piece him up at range unless he gets tired piecing him up for 2 rounds. And it's possible. Caceres is legitimately tough. Like, he's able to take shots, but I just think, his level of competition, Kevin Kroom, Springer, etc. And you could say, Giga lost to Springer or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily indicate that Alex Caceres is going to go out here and beat him. Styles make fights, and if he's not able to get this fight to the ground, I don't see him winning here. So I'm going to bet against Bruce Leroy. Both guys around the same age. I'm going with Giga Jakatse here, the rightful favorite, in my opinion.
Yeah. So fair enough. So this is first fight that I guess we quite disagree on a bit. I've actually got a bet on Alex Caceres here. So Giga's been off a long time since that Calvin Kattar beatdown, and we don't really know how he's going to return after that beatdown. It's been coming up to 2 years, I think a year and a half, a year and 8 months or something. And he's 35 years old. So it's not like he's coming back and he's going to be reinvigorated. I don't think he's going to look any better than he was. The best we can hope for is he looks the same. I'm predicting he'll probably look a little bit worse with the time off and the beating he took. And I just feel like Alex Caceres is not gonna it's not going to give much chance for Giga to pull away dramatically. Like, he's very good at staying in his own range, and he will oblige kicking range. I definitely think Giga Jakatse is the much better striker than him. But this is MMA and shit is a little bit different. And I just feel like the exchanges will probably be quite close for the most part. I definitely agree that Giga would win a kickboxing decision over 15 minutes. But I think that at minus 260, I don't see much wiggle room for Giga to cover the price or to look better than minus 260. If he doesn't land the finish, I don't really think, what's he doing to cover minus 260? He has to like hurt Bruce Leroy a couple of times, because it's probably just going to be some kickboxing, some kicking where both fighters are landing decent. No fighter has great hands. I don't really think Giga has great hands. So I just feel like the dynamic of the fight will lead to some of the rounds being close. And then on top of that, we have the intangible of potentially Giga looking worse after that career-altering beating and the time out of the octagon. And then on top of that, Alex Caceres having a insane grappling edge if it comes to that. So it's like, for me, I think the striking will be fairly close at times. And if Alex Caceres, even if Giga slips on a kick and Alex Caceres goes in his guard, Giga's probably going to stand up with absolutely zero gas. We have to remember that as soon as Giga grapples for 2 minutes, he's completely gassed out with no energy in the tank. Calvin Kattar didn't even take him down. I think he just jumped on his back somehow, stayed on his back. Nothing even happened. The start of the second round, Giga had nothing. He was completely spent. He was completely done. Same thing in the third round of the Jamal Emmers fight. He got completely dominated from a couple of minutes of grappling. So I definitely think that there's a path where Alex subs him instantly. I also think there's a big path to where if Alex gets on top or gets into some grappling transition, Giga's just extremely tired for the next 10 minutes and loses based on his cardio. So with that dynamic, I took a small shot on Alex Caceres here. I mean, I say small shot. I'm just flat staking this whole card. So it's the same shot, you know, on all of my bets. But at plus 210, I see some value in Caceres. So, you know, if it stays on a feet for 15 minutes, he probably will look around plus 210. But I don't think he's going to look any worse than plus 210. Like, I think the very worst you could ever price Alex Caceres in a spot is plus 210. And I think the best you can price him, if he takes the back, he'll look like a big favorite, because it's like, oh, as soon as he gets the back, he's going to dominate. So I mean, yeah, in that type of fight, I don't mind fading Giga with these intangibles at minus 250. Yeah. Next fight, Anthony Smith versus Ryan Spann. Weird fight. Luke, can you take this one away?
Yeah, so I bet Smith in the first fight when he dipped down to like plus 100, like right around fight time. And I had the fight doesn't go the distance in a parlay, like a max parlay. I can't even remember what the F it was with, but I pretty much cleaned house on the first contest. This is another play I might be adding within the next couple hours. I don't know. It's really hard for me to put Anthony Smith as the underdog in this fight. Like, it just, running through everything. It's not even so much about the first fight. It's just like when you look at both guys on paper and benchmark their careers, like, it doesn't really make sense for Anthony Smith to be the underdog in this fight. And he is, but that's honestly what's kind of spooking me here, that he has not flipped to favorite money. Like, there's a reason why he's still staying as the underdog. And that's what's honestly kind of freaking me out. I know he's like 35. He's looked like shit in his last two, quite frankly. But a big component of that was also with like leg kicks. And even in the Rakic fight, there was like a leg kicking component. And the thing with Ryan Spann is he has thrown 2 leg kicks in his entire UFC career. So I think that's a positive for Anthony Smith, is that he doesn't have to worry about anyone kicking his legs within this fight. He's the more proven guy over the course of 15 minutes. He hurt Spann in the first fight. He subbed him in the first fight. He's got better cardio. Spann's just kind of a spaz when like things just like start not going his way, or he just like kind of freaks out. Like I've always been a Ryan Spann hater, quite frankly. I just think he's a guy that honestly just gets by on his size and athletic tools, but that honestly can work for guys at the bigger weight classes at the higher levels, right? He's fast, he's explosive, he's got a nasty guillotine. Smith is old. He's not necessarily reacting to shots the best. Smith is always live to go out there and get absolutely tooled. But he has been historically durable and pretty difficult to submit over the years. So I don't know. I just think on paper, it doesn't really make sense that Smith is the underdog really outside of any narrative consideration, assuming you're someone that thinks that Smith is shot or washed, which is potentially true. But I just think like X's and O's wise, him being an underdog doesn't really make much logical sense.
Jewish, what are we saying, brother?
I feel like that's the breakdown for Spann. Smith is washed, right? If you're betting on the Spann side, Smith is washed, right? That's your logic. Like legitimately, that's the only logic I've heard from a Spann bettor this week. And I can't, if they're right, they're right. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I do think he's on the downswing, definitely. But I also think he did look worse because, like my man said, the leg kicks slowed him down in those fights. You look early on in the fights, he was looking sharp. And I think the reason this line isn't moving because there's public action coming in on Spann. I think this is a 50-50 fight. You're going to have two-way action here. Maybe even sharps on both sides. They think Smith's on a super decline. Spann isn't necessarily the best fighter, but he has good power. He could be able to overwhelm Smith early and get him out of there, especially since Smith is so washed versus a big power puncher. But I honestly, I'm all over the Smith side here. Let me be wrong. I think it's a sharp bet. I think it's over the long term. You're going to be making money betting on Smith in this spot. He hasn't given you a reason to bet against him. And Spann is a finisher. Like if he's getting the job done, he's finishing guys. When has Smith been knocked out? Like he's going to have to submit him, in my opinion, to finish him. Not saying that Smith can't be knocked out, but like you said, historically super durable. There's a reason they call this guy Lionheart. So I'm going to bet the cardio in this spot. That's the main thing that I really think the advantage is at, is the cardio of Smith over Spann. And so I'm taking Anthony Smith here, the veteran.
Yeah, I completely understand. Yeah, I completely understand the Anthony Smith plays. I mean, it seems very obvious, right? I'm not playing any money line. My hot take that I mentioned earlier is actually on this fight. I played a half unit shot on the fight goes to decision at plus 460. And I also played a half unit shot on Ryan Spann to win via decision at plus 1600. And the reason I played those is because, first of all, I just want to get this out of the way. Ryan Spann has been my biggest under 1.5 cash out of all time. Every single time Ryan Spann fights, it goes under 1.5, and I bet on the under 1.5. I've made a lot of money on Ryan Spann under 1.5. The guy is just a serial kill or be killed fighter. He throws big, heavy lever. He's got the guillotine. If he doesn't finish you, he gets finished. He's also got a dodgy chin, as we've seen in the Anthony Smith fight as well. But I feel like Smith is fading dramatically. I've seen it with my own two eyes. I'm not saying, he's completely done. He'll never, ever win a fight again. But I do think he's fading heavily. He's been speaking about retirement. It seems like every time he fights that I see a retirement headline somewhere. So I don't think that's good. And, he's got all these other jobs outside the cage. And he's just looked shot in his last few fights, honestly. I bet on him against Johnny Walker at a pick'em. And I said to myself, if he loses this fight, I've got no trust in Smith ever again. And he lost the fight. And I don't have trust in him. I don't think he looked good in that fight. I think he looked terrible. He looked gun shy. He's always had issues with the leg kicks. I know that, but I just think he's looked very gun shy, right? In this fight, if he is gun shy, well, that's just instant credence to the over. I think he's extremely durable. So I do think if it finishes, I mean, obviously Ryan Spann can finish anyone, but I would definitely think that the early finish more than likely comes on the Smith side than the Spann side. But if Smith is washed as I think he is, well, then he doesn't get a finish. But then he also doesn't get finished because he hasn't shown me he's not tough. He's just shown me he's gun shy and doesn't really throw too much heavy offense as he once did, but he still seems extremely tough. So if that dynamic plays out, I think Ryan Spann maybe cracks him a couple times, but doesn't finish him, and the fight just goes later. And I do think that these fighters I do think Ryan Spann becomes dramatically less finish reliant, or not finish reliant, but finish. I don't know what you want to say, but after the first round, I think Ryan Spann's
finish equity drops.
Yeah, the finishing equity drops massively. Round 1, he can finish anybody, but after that, I think he's probably going to decision unless he gets finished himself. And I trust Anthony Smith to survive round 1. Do I trust Spann to survive round 1? Not as much based on the first fight, but based on my assessment of Anthony Smith being gun shy and kind of washed, then yeah, I'll favor that at plus 460, mind you, not gun to my head saying it will happen. And then I just feel like if it gets out of the first round, I think the chance that it goes to decision massively raises. It could be a Sam Alvey, Ryan Spann type fight, Johnny Walker, Anthony Smith type fight. So, you know, I know it's massively, massively contrarian. I wasn't thinking it at all, but my friend told me, hey, have a look at the overs. And I was like, you know what? I'm not confident enough to put a big bet on an over 1.5. I'd rather just take a small shot on the goes to decision and 1,600 on Spann decision. I could definitely see a world in which he squeaks out a decision, some terrible fight after the first round, like the Sam Alvey fight. So, yeah, obviously not a hot take. Half unit shots from me. I mean, it is a hot take, but not a big bet on my hot take. But half a unit shots for me, you know, we'll see how it plays out. So we've done it. We've got to the main event. Max Holloway versus Korean Zombie. I'm not interested in this fight. I think Max is going to blow through him. I think the way this fight plays out entirely depends on what Max wants to do. I think if Max wants to get a round 1 TKO, I think he can. I think if Max wants to drag it out to decision and say he's the best boxer in the UFC and talk to himself, I think he can do that as well. I think it's a very volatile fight in terms of the totals, because I know a lot of people are playing the over 2.5, and some people played that at like minus 140, and now that shit's like minus 250. I don't know, man. I honestly think Max can blow him out of the water round 1. I think Max can finish him round 2. I really do. Korean Zombie hasn't looked good lately. Volkanovski's one of the best fighters in the UFC. So is Max Holloway. I don't really think, you know, I've seen a few people saying, oh, you know, he got finished by Volkanovski, but that's just because Volkanovski's so good. Yeah, but Max can do the same, in my opinion. Like, Max is still going to throw a lot of volume. He still will throw leg kicks. That Volkanovski, obviously, you know, threw a lot of leg kicks, and that kind of helped him tee off on damage to the head. I just feel like Max can blow him out whenever he wants. So I don't know if I could honestly see Max winning this fight via decision, because he's just teeing off on him, but he's not doing enough to get the finish. But I could also see him finishing round 1 and 2. So for that reason, massive pass for me. Max inside the distance is not a bad shot. Like, if I was going to play anything, I'd definitely be playing Max TKO. I'm just going to have a look at the price now, because I was honestly looking at that, you know. But
I think it's minus 125, something like that.
Yeah, that's solid. I just don't trust Max to like pour it on as much as he will do. I don't know why. I think it's because Max has gone to a lot of decisions, and I've just got him going to a lot of decisions in my mind. And then also, I know these guys are friends, like really friendly. I know that doesn't matter sometimes in MMA, but sometimes it does. Like, I don't know. I feel like I've seen fights where I think Adesanya was very, very cautious against Anderson Silva, and I've seen a few occasions where the fighter lets the veteran off the hook a little bit. I know Max didn't do that against some other fighters like Jose Aldo, but I just have this weird thing in my mind where Max could just blow through him and then just kind of take his foot off the gas. Also, the Arnold Allen fight, I feel like Max fought very cautious in that fight versus a lot of his other fights. Maybe that's coming off the Volkanovski losses. He kind of was just being a little bit more safe. So I think when you throw all of that into the pot, that's the reason I'm scared off of the Max KO. I think I've made good sense of that. I hope you understand what I'm saying by the breakdown. Max by KO is minus 145 now. It puts me off it a little bit more. But I would say that Max KO 60% plus should be probably bigger than 60%. I would say like maybe 70 or 75. But that's assuming that all that slight volatility that I mentioned is not baked into the actual fight. So I think I'm just going to pass. I'm happy to pass. I got a lot of bets on this card overall. But yeah, I do think he finishes him. Luke, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen in this fight?
Yeah, originally I was kind of like lining up with other people on like the 3, 4, 5 KO thing, but even in looking just at those lines, like they're really not that great for a 5-round fight. I mean, they're pretty nerfed from like the general book perspective. I'm not even saying that there's not necessarily value in those. They're just like nerfed so much to the point where I'm like, I don't know. And then I started doing more tape on it. And honestly, how Max has came hot out of the gate in multiple fights as well, even specifically in the Cater fight, like he hurt him pretty bad early. He even, if you remember, I can't remember which Max Volkanovski fight it was, but Max hurt Volkanovski early. I think it was in the second fight. I want to say he dropped. I think he dropped him. Yeah.
In both rounds, first round and second round.
Yeah, and so that coupled with the fact that I just don't think Zombie has looked good recently. I know it's like, oh, it's Volkanovski, but even like Ortega, like, I mean, Ortega put kind of like a striking clinic on the dude. And I mean, that was probably like Ortega's like breakout, like striking based performance, which I just don't think is really the best of looks. And from what I've kind of heard through the grapevine, it sounds like the Zombie was planning to retire after the Volkanovski fight. And
he was. Now,
from what it sounds like, you know, he wanted this one as kind of his last swan song. It's in Singapore, which I don't think is any coincidence. I just think the guy's just absolutely done. And my point is, I don't want to get cute with the 3, 4, 5 because to kind of what you said earlier, I think Max can finish him early in this fight. So I just took the KO at -120. It's like, my thing is like, if this fight does go a full 25 minutes, I don't see Zombie eating upwards of 200 strikes and not going down or not getting like significantly hurt multiple times where he's just like beat the fuck up over 25 minutes to where it's like, okay, I lose my KO prop on a guy who just whooped the living shit out of a guy for 20. It's like, I'm not even honestly going to feel that bad if that's what the case is. I will feel bad if it's what you said and he's out there, you know, and they're high-fiving and to quote the great Nate Diaz, playing touch butt in the park, then I'm going to be pissed off, you know, if that's the case. But I don't know. It's just spot wise. I don't think Zombie's going to last up under him. I like the KO a good bit.
I don't know why I haven't bet it, honestly. Like, I mean, the breakdown's the breakdown. I'm not going to go back into it, but it's easily the side Max KO, man. So I'm saying he could do it in round 1, which Max just doesn't do. So I mean, if I'm saying that, he probably will do it in round 1 or 2, 3, 4, or 5. So I think you cashed that bet for sure. Jewish better, did you break down this fight yet? I don't remember.
No, not yet, brother. All good. But I was gonna say, man, Max, I think he's the side here, clearly, right? But how do we get the value on him? It has to be by the KO. Sometimes I really don't like betting these KO props, but I think I got to do it here. I don't think Max going to be in sparring mode. I really don't think so, man. I think he's out for a finish this time. I think, you know, that with the stuff going on in Hawaii, he's motivated, get a big finish on the road. He's always wanted to fight Zombie as well. I'm sure these guys know each other well. It's going to be a good farewell for Zombie. But not all legends, as we saw with Robbie Lawler, but most legends go out where? On their back. And I think that's how we see Korean Zombie go out tonight. I've been cashing on Max Holloway left and right. I took him. I bet against him in all 3 Volkanovski fights, and I took him in every single other fight, basically. So besides the one on Poirier, which I didn't cash, I've been raking in the dough on Max plus Holloway, and I think this is another day to do it. I also got him in like a crazy parlay that I put on PFL, so hopefully that cashes as well. I think Moneyline's absolute lockeroony.
Yeah, it's a close to a lot. I actually think there's value on minus. I think it was on Bet Online, like minus 750. I actually think there's value on that, which is
for sure.
I wouldn't say that.
Best is blessed, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So that's it. That wraps up the podcast. 1 hour 45. Thank you, first of all, to everybody in the chat. I appreciate everyone. We had got 150 live people here. You know, anytime I do a pod on fight day, always goes crazy. Always get loads of people in here. I would expect everyone to be sleeping right now, but I guess there's a lot of people around the world. So shout out to everybody. You know, without the chat, we wouldn't make the podcast. So I appreciate every one of you. Hopefully we've given you some good picks and predictions, and hopefully you can make some money on our takes. And last but not least, thank you to both my guests. I appreciate you coming on. Had a good time chatting to you. First time me and Jewish done a stream apart from the last one, like first time we done one together. And I haven't spoke to you in a while, Luke, man. So it's been good chopping it up again. I know you don't do the club and sub anymore, so it's good to see your face on the screen. We'll do it again sometime for sure, man. But I'm going to throw the floor to both of you. Jewish better. The floor is yours, bro. Anything you want to say to the people watching?
Oh no, good to see both of you guys. I appreciate both of your takes. Nah, man, just like I said before, the first thing I said will be the last thing I say. This is a late card for people like us in America. Make sure you're mentally stay. You're mentally there. Me, I should be preaching what I say. I'm over here smoking weed at 2 a.m, but I got my bets locked in. I'm not going to stray away from what I got already. I got that patience in my heart. So regardless of where I'm at, you got to stay disciplined. Can't always be motivated, they say, right? So you got to stay disciplined. So stay disciplined out there tonight, folks.
Thank you, brother. Luke, the floor is yours, mate. Anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, SWR_betting on Twitter, dailyfanmma.com. Do stuff over there for Brett Apley and the boys. Yeah, dude, I always love chopping it up with you. To your point, we haven't chopped it up in a while. I think this is the first time me and JB are doing a stream. Good to meet you, bro. Yeah, I hope we can have a little powwow again soon, boys.
All right, sweet. Good luck on all your bets. Me and Luke might be on that over 1.5 Nakamura. I'll hit you on the DMs. We'll speak about that. Yeah, good luck to everybody and catch you on the flip side.